Okay, well, welcome to the 49th episode of The Uncommon Truth.
49ers.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
49ers just down the road, a few hours. I'm joined by Steve Vicki Orsillo once again. It's my pleasure to have you guys. Thanks so much for being The Uncommon Truth. I just get to be the host, so you guys are the fountains of the uncommon truth. And
Fountains of uncommon truth.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people want to be the fountain of youth. You guys get to be the fountain of truth.
Can we have a little bit of both?
Fountain of truth.
Well,
I'll take that one.
One day we'll get you to do a high kick on video, and people will see how youthful you actually are.
Splits, huh?
Yep. So we're on video once again. I think this is the third or fourth time we've been on video.
It's been so fun, hasn't it?
It has been great. I've learned how to cross and not cross my legs. Learned how to wear the right colors.
Not wear a purple hat.
Not wear a bright purple hat with a shiny silver patch on the side.
Why are you looking at us like that?
Steve just came in from out back where you're working on the church renovation of the church expansion project, right?
Yeah, we started tried to start the foundation, but found out the dirt wall was way too close, and now we've had to move it.
All right.
So we've been digging dirt for a couple days in a row.
Okay, so you're out on a little excavator.
Right now I'm on an excavator. Mostly I've been on a backhoe and a skid steer, but
he's amazing how he does it. You'd have to watch to see him do that. It's remarkable out there.
That was literally 5 minutes ago, and we have switched his shirt. It was like a pit crew came in and swapped shirts.
Fixed my collars, button my top shirt button.
Hair, makeup.
Yeah.
For the radio.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure my hair wasn't
all for
done.
you guys out there in video podcast land.
Yeah.
For those of us listening to the podcast, go over and check it out if you want to just see what we're wearing. I don't know. We've got
we got matching
our
coffee
cups and everything. So that's cool. A lot of people like different ways of processing media. I always like listening to podcasts while doing dishes or driving.
Yep.
But some people are real visual. You know anybody who's been talking to you about the podcast that you guys want to shout out?
Well, Nicole Harvey watches it all the time. I know quite a few people.
She was the one actually who came into my mind.
Oh, really? Yeah, she's all over. I had her on Zoom today and said, if the quarantine was only for you to get to know you and get to know what's going on in your life, it's kind of been worth it. She's really been born again. So, hey, Nicole Harvey, this is for you.
Yeah, awesome. Nice to have you listening, Nicole. She listens on the Podbean app. There's like 1,000 ways that you could listen to this show.
Wow.
So if you're finding this show via a Facebook post or something, head over to changeorville.org and follow the links to podcast, or you can just jump on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts. It's literally everywhere.
Everywhere.
And that's the second time I've said literally. So I've hit my
You might be
maximum.
British.
So last week we started off by singing some Toto hits.
Yeah.
And I feel like we're kind of on the upswing.
Hold the line.
We're kind of.
Bum, 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 bum. Go ahead.
Yeah, so that was last week. We're gonna leave Toto back there.
Okay.
But
you brought him up though.
I did. I feel like we're on the upswing out of this quarantine thing, especially here in rural Northern California.
Yes.
And so that's brought me in mind of one of Vicky's favorite songs to sing. So do you want to hit us with some "I'm Still Standing"?
Absolutely not.
No, you're not going to do it. All these people.
No, Max.
I'm still
Go ahead.
standing. No, I'm just
After
trying
all
to
these
warm
years,
you up.
feeling like a true survivor, feeling like a little kid, we are still standing.
I'm still standing.
He can sing.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're still standing.
I'm still standing.
He has a great voice. Mine is only for Jesus
Your voice.
and everybody at the Father's House team.
Yep.
And
So
your
when
mother loved
we
it.
get back together in person, you're gonna have to come to the Father's House. And Vicky's the number one fan on Facebook, but she's also the number one fan right in the front row.
Worship.
And
I remember one time a long time ago when we were very young, and we went to a church in Spokane, and it probably had like 25 or 40 people, and my brother and I would sit in the front row. Like it was a little kind of like our old dining hall. It was a very small house, and we sang very loudly, and the pastor, who was also a worship leader, he'd be 5 to 6 feet away from us, and one time he just broke up out laughing, and he had to open his eyes and kind of shook his head because there was no way he could find a key with Bruce and I.
He was having a hard time.
Bruce and I singing
he was
loudly.
playing the guitar, trying to sing on key with and Vicki in his right ear, and he said he would just start inching his way away till he was in front of the other row.
He was all the way to the left.
Yeah.
Anyway,
great.
there you go. I still poor Lisa Kelly and whoever leads worship. I'm right there loud
Oh,
loud
no,
and clear.
That's one of the
I know
other
when I
good
lead
benefits
worship,
of
I
the
love having Vicki worship in
the
the front row.
quarantine, right? You can't hear all the people trying to sing differently.
That's right. That's why she sounds so good. Is because
We're not in her way. That's right.
I tell you,
loud
Vicki,
and proud.
If you
Vicki-
don't know what we're talking about, you can still watch the Live from the House broadcast every night at 6:00 Pacific time. That's also on Facebook, the Father's House Facebook.
Yeah.
I'll put links to that in the description here. And
That's been cool.
We're doing church services live still from the house. So 6:00 on Wednesday,
Yep.
and which
Tonight.
is today.
Oh, yesterday.
I mean, it's dropping. The show's dropping on Monday, but it's a Wednesday to us.
That's
All
right.
right.
It's Wednesday
and,
for us.
and Sunday morning. So check those out.
Whenever Steve says "all right," that means he wants to keep going.
Yeah. So
All
let's
right,
moving right along.
Yeah, after all the commercials.
Getting
We're having a good time, Max.
Getting-
Steve
you
is
guys-
thinking about his backhoe outside.
yeah. All the
it's
work.
called
You're a working pastor. You're not.
that I am.
He is a worker.
Works.
You got to
Works.
get stuff
Done.
stuff going, and that's a little bit of what we're talking about today. If you've been joining us for the past few episodes, since we kind of shifted focus and started bringing both you guys in on every episode, that's been awesome. But what we've been talking about has been things like how your life should be different when you're a Christian.
Absolutely.
How obeying Jesus should be it's like a I don't
Permanent?
know. That's how your life should look, right?
Right.
Obedience, and how sacrifice. Jesus showed us sacrifice, and we have to obey Him and walk that out.
Correct.
And so I imagine a lot of people would maybe be having a hard time with some of those subjects about, well, don't you guys sound like it's a little bit one-sided with works? And so I wanted to get your guys' opinion on that, because I know a lot of people are asking that question.
They probably asked you.
Yeah. That's the one way you can get in contact with me. If you want to ask Steve Vicki
Yep.
stuff, you can shoot me an email.
That's right.
So how do we do that? How do we do both? Or do we have to do both? Be intimate with God and have a working out our faith?
If I could add something that is seemingly obvious yet doesn't seem like any of us think about it. Intimacy with God is a work. You have to get up or go to your closet. You have to stop your life.
That's good.
You have to do something to become intimate with God. You have to approach Him. And so what we call it around here is loving Jesus. So we are high in value for worship, right? For worship, singing songs of worship and saying words and getting in a posture of worship, raising our hands on our knees, bowing before Him. Well, I've got kind of bad news for a whole bunch of people. Those are works. Those are actions that require a decisive decision to do it. You look around the room and not everyone's doing it. Well, if you look at their life, there's very little declaring of the faith. Now, Paul the Apostle said that we are saved by grace, and that through faith. He also said we're not saved by works. And it's really so simple. We aren't saved by works. We're saved by grace. But everybody doesn't get grace. Only those who have faith get grace.
Wow.
And faith without works, our other apostle said, is dead.
Wow.
And without faith, it's impossible to please God. So, I mean, they really had a clear understanding that when the Holy Spirit comes to live inside of you, there will be evidence called fruit. Kindness, it takes a work to be kind. You have to act out kindness. Gentleness, self-control, these are all things you do. Love one another as I have loved you. Guess what Jesus did? He did works of salvation, works of healing, works of feeding. Love one another as I love you. Go feed. You saw me hungry and gave me nothing to eat. It's works, guys. Works is not how I'm saved. Works is how my faith manifests itself in a world full of darkness and commonality. There's just everything is going a certain way. There is a prince in this world, and faith stands alone on a hill as a light of the world.
It's good.
And faith without works is dead. And it's just what you define. Oh, the thief on the cross, he didn't have any works. Are you kidding me? The guy from a cross with the evil guy, the guy's on the ground who still can inflict a ton of pain before he dies. He proclaims Jesus as the king. Remember me when you come into your kingdom. He proclaims belief in front of people who are beating people for believing this. They beat him, and I'm going to declare him my Lord. That's a work. That's a declaration of faith. Maybe it's the last one of his life or the only one of his life, but he declared faith. It was a work. And I think that when people are they so much need you to define, are you saved by grace or by works? Well, you can't have one without the other. James said, you tell me about your faith, but I'll look at what you do and I'll see your faith.
Wow.
Well, you're saved by grace through faith. You can't have grace without faith. Faith is the door by which you enter into the room of grace. Wow. And faith is a work. It's a lifestyle of doing things. And I'm not saying you have to be out here on a tractor. I'm out here on a tractor for Jesus. And everything I do for Jesus. And I don't do it to be saved. Let me just make this real clear.
It's good.
I do it because I am saved. I do it because I am intimate with him. Because at a different time, in a different work, I bow my knees before him. I raise my hands in surrender to him. I put out my hands in receiving to him. I receive what he did for me. I happen to know. You go out of your way for somebody and they appreciate it, it feels good. They actually take advantage of it. You give them a car, they use that car to go get a job. They use that job to pay their bills, have a house, feed their kids for the first time in their life. Hey, they're using your sacrifice well. Well, Jesus had much greater sacrifice than to give me a car. He gave me his life. What do I do with it? I show great appreciation and worship in my life for what he did for me by doing things. Doing things is saying kind things, telling people the truth, and building walls, building foundations, feeding the hungry. It is a lifestyle of serving him, and it really can't be separated. You can't have one. There is no intimacy without works, and any works without intimacy is just useless labor.
Well, that's what I wanted to get into, because it seems like in my Christian life, I've seen people who are really good at working, and I've seen people who are really good at intimacy, and I don't remember seeing a whole lot of people that were really good at both at the same time, or really wanted to be good at both at the same time. Can you, Vicki, tell us just about kind of the two ditches that people kind of end up on with that?
Yeah, I think it's pretty. When you say that, I just had a thought of the Old Testament, New Testament, or the Old Covenant, New Covenant, I guess would be better, where it was really all about works in the Old Covenant, and the New Covenant's about faith and grace, and I love the what Steve just said. It's so apropos. You can't have one without the other, and I think if you get in the works vein, you get burnout. And I don't really believe in burnout, because I've been doing this for a long time. It was just 41 years a few days ago, and I've never gotten burnout. Never got burnout, because it's out of my heart of thanksgiving to Jesus for what he did to me.
Love.
Freely was given, freely I give, he says, and I just don't feel like he's an evil slave master that's making me work. I work in response to love. Like Steve said, if someone gives you something, you're just so grateful to them and you're so appreciative. But how much more has Jesus done for me? And seeing his hand over the 41 years, it's just grown exponentially, like further up and farther in. Some of the things we're talking about, we couldn't have done 41 years ago because we weren't there in our faith.
Yeah.
We weren't there, we were moving, we kept moving. Steve often says, if you want to get a Chico, you just start walking. And, and a week from now, you'll be a lot closer than you were to the city 3 days ago. And that's Christianity, is every day just getting up and saying, Jesus, where are we going? What do you want from me? And kind of shedding your skin of the world.
Yeah.
And then the ditch of just faith. I was saved 16 years ago. I don't have to do anything because of grace. That's just ridiculous. It means that you're not really studying to show yourself approved and reading the red letters of Jesus in context. You don't really know what it says. You just think it's a escape hell card.
Get out of jail free.
Get out of jail free card. And it's like, I don't know. The truth is, if we're wrong and we didn't have to work this hard to, because of our love, and Jesus said, you didn't have to work that hard, we still make it, we're okay. But if you just stand on the side of just, I got saved 16 years ago and I didn't need to do anything, and it's just grace, 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 it was all done on the cross, I don't know. If you're wrong, I don't think that would be a great place to find yourself when you meet Jesus.
Yeah.
So I think that, it's like really good. The analogy for me is a bowling alley, right? You don't want to be on either one of those sides of the gutters, because they're gutters.
Right.
You want to be center down and get strikes. So that's where I want to be, right in the middle of grace and faith. Hope that answers that.
Oh, definitely, yeah. Because I just remember, kind of growing up as a Christian when I was 13, 14, and that's all I thought about was, okay, well, I found Jesus. I know he's real. I've started talking to him, but now there's all these things, this checklist, right?
Yep.
So quickly learn to stop swearing.
Yep.
Quickly start, learn to look at the opposite sex the right way, and to just do all these things the right way. And there's a little bit of relationship there, but then it was like, okay, well, now you're part of the club. You got to start acting like you're part of the club. And I've also remember hearing people say, it's like, okay, well, I'm in, and I guess I'm accepted no matter what. So
That's
I don't really have to do anything. And I guess what I wanted to drill down to in this podcast is there's got to be both, right?
Correct.
Like you said, you can't have one without the other. I remember, it sounds like that song from that sitcom, right?
Yeah.
Love and Marriage.
Oh,
the
I
one
never
that I
watched
would
Married
never
with
watch
Children.
that. I'd never
Never
watch it, but it
watched
would
it.
come on
Yep.
after The Simpsons, which I used to watch.
You used to watch that. My kids couldn't watch that either.
Well, I couldn't watch it as a kid either, but then all the other
Married with Children?
No, I never watched that one. I watched The Simpsons. Which when I was younger, my mom said no to, but as the rest of the world got all crazy, The Simpsons stayed the same, and it was almost innocent.
Caught up.
And so now my mom likes The Simpsons. So,
I never watched it.
but Married with Children
Love
would
and
come
Marriage.
on, and we'd
Yep.
click, change the channel.
Can't have one without the other.
So yes, back to our
Yeah,
back
and
from
that's
our
true.
pop
You
culture
really,
references.
honestly, it's the tension of the gospel. There's always yes and no, and everything that Jesus teaches. It's really is the tension, don't you think, Steve, of just the gospel being right in the middle?
I think so.
So there is this. It comes from one. It starts with one and flows into the other, and it starts with relationship, right?
Yeah, I think if we're talking intimacy and works, I think they're the same thing. You can't have intimacy without works, and you can't have works without intimacy. Intimacy is a work, and I don't know how to describe it any differently. It's like people who ask that question, it
It's a
sounds
wrong
like you're all
question.
about works.
Yeah.
You're not about intimacy. Well, works that aren't about intimacy are dead.
Huh.
And works that aren't about faith are dead. But every action of faith just should what's that you were talking about, burnout? It should inflame you. It should be a burning coal inside of you that drives you. Like, I want to do this. I get to do this, and it gets tiring. I've been working 2 full-time jobs all my adult life, and I have never thought that I was burned out ever.
That you have arrived.
I want to do it for the Lord. And I am very intimate. Most intimate person is probably Vicki, and we believe this. So it's like you can't have, they don't exist apart. Works in the kingdom, the works that are faith, and faith that brings you grace. Even grace was a work of Jesus Christ. Wow. Every apostle, look at every single apostle. I mean, name a person that's described in the New Covenant that's not out doing it. And doing it like at a cost, at an extreme cost of their very life. And you just, I don't know how else to talk about it or describe it. Or
So where does that idea then come from? Because I know there's so many people out there that's like, it's just plaguing them that they're different things. Where does it come from that it's a different, that they're polar opposites?
Well, people don't want to do these things, feed the hungry, go preach, be sent to Africa or be sent to bad neighborhoods or, things that cost them. They don't want to do them. So they come up with a reason why they don't have to.
Theology almost.
They read the Bible to try to prove that
Their
what
point.
they want and their lifestyle is justified. And I think that wisdom is justified by her works. Jesus, every time we come to a verse that says he did this so that we would do good works, no one wants to hear that, but I emphasize it. See, we are created for good works. We are sent out to do good works. We are saved to do good works. And all of those are found throughout, those ideals are found throughout the New Covenant. And so
I think you're asking where it comes from. I think it's just, I think it comes from just going to churches and allowing the pastor to speak into your theology, into your identity, and not really finding out for yourself exactly what it says. For the love of all that's holy, don't take my word for it or Steve's or yours. It's like the Bible says, study to show yourself approved. I think we talked about that last week. It's like, but a lot of churches will preach us a prosperity message or the claim it, name it, claim it, and we just kind of buy into it. And honestly, we're inherently a little lazy. I know I am. I would rather just sit at home watching TV, Love and Marriage. What is it? Marriage with Children. No, I wouldn't, but I'm just kidding. But the truth is, it gives us credence for why we don't have to do things. So you go to a church and that's what they're saying. So it gives you, I don't have to do anything. I'm saved. He's got my back.
Yeah.
I got saved in 1979. I don't have to do anything else. The truth is, we don't want to do the works to find out whether or not that's true.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So what are the effects of somebody leaving that out of their life? If they just are like, I don't really feel like I have much of intimacy with him, so I'm just going to skip that part and I'm just going to plow on ahead and just keep doing that.
I'm confused. They're going to do which are they going to do and which are they not going to
So
do?
I'm failing to have a relationship with Jesus. I don't really feel that intimacy. It's not a motivating factor in my life. So I better just plow through and just keep working for him without first having that intimacy.
I think you're way better off doing that than the opposite, having the
agree.
intimacy without any works.
I agree with that.
I think you
You're on the
intimacy
right road.
without works ends up being a little bit like in the Adam and Eve in the garden. It opens you up to starting to think just by itself, just one thing. I fellowship with God, and that's all I do.
Wow.
That doesn't lead in a very good direction in the Garden of Eden or anywhere else. I think that our faith is given shoes. It's given traction.
He gives us credit for that too, I think.
By working, and I think that some people never do have that intimate touch by God. I think they could have, if they would get inner healing, get the obstacles removed. I think they could have, but I think that a person who goes all their life in a stated faith, doing the things God told them to do in the Bible, because whether you hear God's voice or not, the Bible is what God wrote to us, and we have His voice there. And I know a lot of people, pretty wildly faithful Christians who are very merciful, who basically had never felt God, and it's pretty amazing. I think Jesus would say, "Blessed are they who believed without the benefit of intimate touch." And I think that the most important thing is worship. And I think that a man who dresses up on Sunday morning, takes his family to church, really lives a holy life and decides and declares, I believe in Jesus Christ. I believe in God the Father. I believe in the Holy Spirit. I believe in the Trinity. I believe He died for my sins and saved me from myself. That man is going to be doing really well. Those are a lot of things he did that stated faith. And that's a lot of worship to make all those declarations. To go to church every week, that's worship. To make the stand against unrighteousness, to decide not to cheat any man, that's worship. God sees all of that as worship. And that, by definition, is intimacy. I think the question says, if you don't feel God, you're not intimate with God. And I just don't know. I don't know where that comes from. That comes from a 21st century ideal of what Christianity is supposed to be. This God touched by the Holy Spirit. I certainly like that, and I want that and have that. But is it the deciding factor of whether or not I'm a faithful Christian or not?
Right. You say all the time, like, hey, he told me he was true. And if he doesn't say it again, ever again,
that's right.
I still have to operate on. He
That's
told
right.
me.
That's
He told
right.
me he was real.
And I agree with Steve. I think if you had to choose one or the other, I'd rather have someone who showed me their works, kind of, even because, quite honestly, in this day and age, there's a lot of places that we're associated with where it's just experiential.
Yeah.
It's intimacy with Jesus. That's all they want to do is just be intimate with God and worship and then not do anything.
And receive from
and
Him.
And so when and receive from Him. And so the problem we're seeing now with the second or third generation of the experiential movement is that their kids don't even believe because there's no works. There's no taking your kids to church, making them do something because there's such a incredible. It's an incredible thing when you teach your kids how to live, and just doing the next right thing. So I think if there's, obviously, again, in the middle of the bowling lane is where we want to be. However, if you had to choose one or the other, I would go with works and just, I love Him. I can't feel Him. Mm-hmm. I don't even, but I just know that He's there and He saved me and He doesn't lie. Mm-hmm. So I would agree with that.
And let me just say for the audience, don't choose one or the other.
No.
Yeah.
Make both of them real. Make intimacy your works.
Your life
and your works your intimacy. Mm-hmm. Make worship
That's
your
good.
lifestyle.
So you talk about something that I think would be helpful in this. It's practicing the presence of Jesus.
Yeah.
Right? And so I remember reading that book. I think his brother Lawrence, he was a monk in France, I think, a long, long time ago. And he had just a running conversation, even out loud with the
Jesus.
Lord. He was a kind of, I don't think he was very well educated. He was a cook for all the other monks, and he would just cook with Jesus. He would go on errands to pick up stuff from town with Jesus. And
PPOG, J.
So explain that a little bit.
Well, the story you're telling is an absolutely perfect viewpoint or a vision. If you think about the guy cooking in his time frame, he didn't have piped in gas and all that. Think about how much work it was while he's intimate with Jesus.
Perfect.
And I think it's a perfect combination, a perfect balance of He is my friend. He is with me. He's a brother. He's my Lord, and I obey Him.
I take Him with me.
And He's with me, so I talk to Him. I don't ignore Him.
Yeah.
I live with Him. I don't ignore Him. I serve Him. I don't ignore Him. He doesn't serve me. He doesn't live to serve me. I live to serve Him.
You would actually go and open the door for Jesus when you're going on a drive, right?
Season in my life where I wish I would have continued it. I did it as a season on purpose where I asked Him to move so I could get a box. I opened the door for Him like I was opening it for my girlfriend, and then closed it, went around, got in the driver's seat, drove Him, talked to Him by turning my head towards the passenger seat. I had groups of people that thought I was nuts. I worked for 30 days at a nursery one time just to break up the monotony of construction. And all these ladies are out there wearing these big, big sun hats. And they would all gravitate towards me in the box truck, loading the box truck so they could hear me talking to an invisible person.
That's great.
And they would be speaking a foreign language. I don't know what it was, but they were speaking a foreign language. And I knew, but you could see from the body language, they're saying, hey, that crazy man's doing it again.
He's good looking, but he's crazy.
He's crazy.
He's good
So
looking.
I actually helped my daughters with that. So my daughters share a room, and the youngest one, she's not afraid of the dark, Arrow, but Jovi, Arrow's not the youngest now. She's middle.
Younger of those two, though.
Yeah, the younger of those two.
Yep.
Jovi is afraid of the dark now. And so we started inviting Jesus to come sit on the blue chair in our room.
That's cool.
And I didn't realize how big of a deal it was to them until we ran out of space, had to rearrange, and we had to actually get rid of the blue chair. And so the question, obviously, in my 4-year-old's head is,
where's Jesus
going to sit? So we practiced. We said, okay, well, you've got extra sheets. Let's make him a little spot to sit on the floor. And then she actually came to me and she said, I think he'd actually be more comfortable up on the dresser there because he could see more up there. So can
Love that.
And so when she prays at night, she prays, can you come sit on the cabinet? Can you protect my sisters and
Wow.
myself? And it's cool because she's taking our word for it, and then she's actually practicing his presence with
Her
her
whole life, if she can
right?
continue that'd be phenomenal practice, don't you think? It just because I wish I could do that all the time.
Yeah, I wish I would have kept doing it.
Yeah.
So what do you say to somebody who doesn't believe that they can actually have that experience with the Lord, that intimacy?
Well, I think any person who thinks that has two things. They have a faith problem. Number one, they might have a faith problem, which would be a very scary thing. If they don't have a faith problem, then they have a misunderstanding of the word intimacy, what it means to be intimate with God. And I've already spoke to that a little bit, but we in our time, in our day, have so many people defining terms for us. And you know, Vicki told a story where at conferences where each hour of the day someone defines it differently and everybody amens. And we're all so confused with that because the word intimacy, you know, to be intimate with somebody, when they say I can't be intimate with God, you have to ask them, well, what does that mean? That what is it you can't do? And when they tell you, it's like, well, that's not the only that you're like, you're pigeonholing this thing. You are
He's God.
You are picking one thing out of a whole basket full, saying if it's not this, then it's not real. It's like a basket full of assorted fruit, and you pulled up a banana and say, if it's not this, it's not fruit.
Yeah.
Well, you're wrong. Your definition of fruit is wrong. All of those things in that basket are fruit. And why can't? Well, tell me about your life. What are you doing? Well, that's intimacy. Tell me what else you're doing. That's intimacy. That's closeness to God, that you hold his word dear to your heart. Most intimacy people become word people. They become Bible people. They're always quoting the Bible at you as a defense for you to think something's wrong with them because they're not like you. And so they start quoting the Bible at you to prove to you they're intimate or that they know something. And then I don't feel God. When I talk, I don't feel him listening to me. Yeah, but you're intimate with his Bible, with the Bible, and that is his truth. So isn't that some form of intimacy with him? If the truth in the Bible is him, this is him, this truth, not the book, not the words, the truth of the Bible is, if that's him, then isn't that being intimate with him? And they all look at me and go, well, it's not what I thought intimacy was. You know, it's like, it's always either a faith problem, and they really don't have any faith, and they're just kind of spitting in the wind on you. They just kind of want to argue about it. Or they truly are sincere, and they don't know what intimacy is. And it's been defined for them by others as something really crazy.
Yeah, you shake and you quake and you feel the Holy Spirit and you sweat.
Yeah.
Or
If it's not if it doesn't look how I look when I'm intimate, then I must be saying you're not intimate, and that's not true at all.
it's really good. That's really good.
That is helpful.
That is helpful to me. It's like, because that just defines it. We do put it as if you don't do this or that, you're not intimate. If you don't always know or hear God, you're just not intimate. Well, that's not true. It's. I think there's so much more. Your whole life, we're a whole body, and we're very. We're made so uniquely that I think that's really a great answer. I don't think I've ever heard it quite like that. I really like that.
Well, for me, practically, that stuff has been actually been a growing thing for me recently, because I got here and I came from a place that was way more, it was very religious, right?
Very word oriented.
It was very word oriented. I could tell you what the Bible said and where it said it.
Sure.
And cross-reference.
Which is great.
Right? And it was really good.
Yeah.
But I had a hard time, like, if you were to say, like, tell me what God says about this, I'd come back with a case study, right? And
That's
so
awesome.
when I got here and I experienced people saying, actually, Jesus wants us to turn left, so we're going to turn left at this street, I was like, man, I am miles away from that. And I think I put a lot of pressure on myself
Absolutely.
to look like them, to
Absolutely.
have intimacy the way they defined it. Because I really wanted intimacy. And I overlooked the things that I'd actually been intimate with Jesus in, and I tried to make my faith look like somebody else's.
One size fits all.
And actually, what happened when Steve, you told me, just take the pressure off.
Yeah, dude.
Like, just do what you're doing, and focus on the community of believers around you. Focus on focus on the good things.
And your own gifts and talents.
Right?
Yeah.
And I did that, and I think that was about a month ago you told me that. And every day a little brick from that wall has been coming down.
Wow, that's awesome,
really
actually.
And so I've been able to, I've been asking on the advice of Lisa Kelly. She said, why don't you, if you have a hard time hearing God's voice, why don't you ask him something that's not tied to some big life decision?
That's great.
So I got a lot of hats. I love hats. And so I asked him, what hat today, Jesus?
That's awesome.
And I would never pick my Cincinnati Reds hat first because it's kind of old and shabby. But 2 days in a row, I got Cincinnati Reds. I'm like, there's no big story behind that, but I get to walk around the whole day like I'm wearing the hat Jesus told me to wear.
Did you ask Jesus today?
Right? No, Yost told me I had to wear the blue hat for the recording.
I was like, you really match us. You did great. I was like, well,
so
Yost from Jesus
was speaking through Yost.
That's right.
And once again, we've got Yost back on the podcast.
And he's still single?
Right.
He's still single, but he's not desperate.
Uh-oh.
There we go. He'll roast us every time after we're done recording.
Shakes his head at us.
Yeah.
So, if you know that somebody hears the Lord about which way to turn, today's version is, boo-hoo, I can't hear him.
Wow.
I want to hear him. When I think the real response should be,
victim.
I'm going to hang out with that guy a lot and keep seeking the Lord for what it is I can do.
Yeah.
And so he knows to turn, and he does it well. He hears the Lord, turn left, turn right, go straight, back up. Well, I want to hang out with him because I want to celebrate his gifts. I think it's really clear that we all have lots of gifts, and even all the gifts, but we don't all have the ability to use them for some reason. We don't all operate in them. It's whatever our faith causes to rise to the top. And if this guy's faith rose to where he hears directions, I mean, you name someone that couldn't stand to hear directions better. We would all benefit from having that guy in our midst.
Yeah.
And so then what is my gift? Maybe my gift is making sweet music like Lisa's and causing people to love Jesus. Well, let's add her to our circle as well. And now we're not going to get lost. We're going to go the right direction, and we're going to have somebody lead us in worship.
Good.
Well, then what else? Let's find someone who is able to read the Bible and just see the truth and expound upon it. Well, let's get that guy in here too, because that's a pretty important gift, right? And here's some guys over here that can lift heavy things, and here's some girls over here that can decorate pretty, and they are led by the Spirit in decorating. Well, wouldn't we want them in our circle as well?
Yeah.
I want to hang out with that person too. And pretty soon you have the gifts and talents we were born in, being consecrated unto the Lord because he died for us and we love him. And our ability is heightened. Our pencil is sharpened. Our knife is sharpened. Our whole life is sharper, and the image is clearer because we're being used by God in our gift. But let's not say I'm afraid of getting involved in work, so I'm not going to use my gift. I'm not going to sing good songs. I'm not going to speak about the Bible because I don't want anybody to think I'm doing works. I'm working my way to heaven. No, we need to all just start doing these works, quit sniveling because you have one that I don't have, and you quit sniveling because I have one you don't have, and let's all just go together. And if you know someone that can hear God, then go ask them, what's God saying?
Yeah.
Instead of what we've got today is a whole lot of people who speak for God, and it turns out they weren't speaking for God. And it just diminishes faith. It doesn't grow faith.
Yeah.
But if we have 10 people and one hears God, and pretty clear that it's kind of like awesome to watch because they seem to be right. Well, hey, why don't you hang out with me? Because when I need to hear God, because I can't, I want you to.
Yeah.
I mean, and again, let me go back to everybody, hold your letters on that subject. I believe everyone can hear God. I just don't believe we all do. And I don't believe everyone has learned yet. And we're all in different processes. But if somebody's ahead of the game and got there first and they can hear God, I want to hang out with them. I want them to tell me where God's taking us.
Yeah.
And I'm way ahead. I am way ahead on a bunch of other things. And people should want to hang out with me. And Vicki is astronomically great at really other things than me.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't want to reject her for that. I want to add her to the soup, add her flavor to the mix.
Yep.
All right.
That was really good.
I went off.
No, it's good.
So where do we go, Vicki, to help people? So maybe there's somebody listening that's like, man, I've never even got to that. I have to do something I have to do something with my faith. What's one thing they can do today while staying intimate with Jesus?
And quarantined.
And quarantine, yep. Because we don't know where people are listening,
that's right.
right?
It could be lockdown.
What can we do for them to help them start practicing both intimacy and works
I
at
think
the same
it's
time?
just really simple. When I got saved, I just every day I woke up and say, okay, where are we going today, Jesus?
Yeah.
I give you permission to take my day. And I don't really look for things to, give my money away or to help people. I just love Jesus, and I think most of your listeners do that. And it's just like the Lord is able to open doors and shut doors. So just I think getting up every morning and just dedicating the day to Jesus, and He's the author and the finisher of our faith. So He's also He can get us where He needs to go. So I would just quite simply just wake up in the morning before your feet hit the floor and say, Jesus, this is your day. Where are we going? And then when you're walking around and all of a sudden you see the guy in the street and you think, I should give him some money. It's probably not your thought. It's because I'm not usually tempted to do good. I'm usually tempted to do bad and hold my money. So if you have a thought, I should give that guy my shoes, just do it. And you start that way, and it just grows, and you just hear. It's just an impression. Like lots of times we say we hear the Lord, and people are really confused about that. I don't hear an audible voice. It's more like an impression, a thought.
Yeah.
That I know now is
That's
not
helpful.
mine.
Mm-hmm.
It's not mine because I don't want to give him my brand new Nike shoes. I just bought them. But so if I think that I've throughout the years I've acted on that, and then I hear these stories oftentimes on the other side where they say, I was just asking the Lord this or that, and can you imagine if someone got saved because you gave him your $60 Nike shoes? It's really worth it.
And is that a muscle that you have to build up?
It's a real muscle.
Okay.
Because I remember one time years ago I just saw like somebody came to my mind. You should call them, and I didn't, and one of them died 2 days later. One of them was their birthday. One time I did call. I remember 2 times I didn't do it, and the person actually ended up dying two days later. It was crazy. One time then the next time I did do it, and this girl started crying because it was her birthday and no one called her. And so the Lord is always working. And like, again, I don't hear a thunderous voice. I hear a thought that I now recognize is not mine. Because I'm selfish and self-centered. So to do something that's not selfish and self-centered, I recognize now it's the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
And I would add, besides getting up in the morning and saying that, I would say the question was somebody who hasn't learned that, how do you get them started? Read the words of Jesus.
Well, yeah.
A little bit of the words of Jesus every day. I'm not talking about a chapter a day. I'm not talking about anything. I'm talking about just read the Gospels as slow or as fast as you want, and just let those things soak into you. I'll bet you most of your wrong thinking starts to fade away. You start to say, "Wow, Jesus really wants a lot from us."
Yeah.
How could I have ever believed He didn't want anything from us? He says it in there.
So good.
Do this, don't do this, don't do that.
Yeah.
It's like,
if you do this.
wow, He really said that a lot, because people today don't believe He said that. They don't believe, there's all these do's and don'ts. Well, there are a lot of do's and don'ts, and just read it. That would be the best way to cross over, to wake up each morning and say, this is your day, Jesus. It belongs to you, and then read what He says and assimilate it. Meditate on it. I like to speak in His words. I'm always quoting Jesus. I don't do chapter and verse. Okay, in Matthew 12 it says. No, I just speak His words.
That's right.
And they become life to me.
Okay.
Agreed.
Yeah, so I heard somebody share something with me yesterday, and she was saying, I have a hard time doing hearing Jesus in specifics. So I'll ask, what do you want me to do today, Jesus? And I'll hear, just help people or be there for somebody. And somebody challenged them, like, well, you should be hearing in specifics, once that muscle gets built up, you should. And she realized what was happening was she didn't actually want to hear the specifics. and I can totally relate with
me
that,
too.
right? Where it's like,
don't tell me.
Just do your best today, because when it comes at the end of
That's
the
right.
day, when your head hits the pillow and you're like, Jesus, did I do my best? Oh, I guess I did pretty well. But if it's like, call this person,
Yeah.
And the Lord tells you to call this person, it's pretty black and white, whether you have called that person or not. And that was helpful to me.
And then as you start the process of reading Jesus and just act like we're talking about this muscle, I think the Lord will give you some warm fuzzies because we need a little bit of stimulus to let us know kind of we're really hearing from him, and you'll get that. You'll get some answers on the other side sometimes, Sometimes you won't. Sometimes it'll take you 20 years, or to maybe hear from that person, or maybe never. And that's not why you're doing it, but to help you build that muscle. Because, even when working out, if we just consistently looked exactly the same after 40 years of working out, we just kind of probably wouldn't want to work out anymore.
Well, after 40 years, yeah.
I've just been 6 weeks, and I'm like, everything's different in the way it fits me. So the stimulation, the stimulus of working that muscle, I think the Lord will show you, and it really is cool. You're never tempted to do something good. So if you think something good, do it.
That's cool.
Awesome.
All right. Well, I think that's where we'll leave it. I'm glad where that conversation went. We got, like we said, we got a little bit edgy in there.
We did?
But I liked it.
Okay.
I think that's why we're called the Uncommon Truth, right?
Well, how did it get edgy?
It's
this
you.
Isn't.
It was you.
You're the edgy one.
You're the angular one.
I'm edgy.
But
I'm the
we
fluffy
like that
one.
because this isn't stuff you're going to
fluffy,
hear.
right?
You're not going to hear this anywhere else. And maybe it's not the best way to build a giant podcast library. It's not the best way to build a church. But I do think there are people out here that are starving for truth.
I agree.
And this is a great place to hear it. If you need it more than once a week, we're online every night right now.
Yeah.
And
Facebook and YouTube.
Yep. And I'll put those links down in the description. And when all this passes by, why don't you come down for a visit and meet Steve and Vicki?
We'd love it.
Or send us an email and I can ask questions. I can ask your questions to these two, and we'll see what we can get talking about. So.
Hey, come down. We'll buy him a frozen yogurt.
Yeah.
Yeah, big
we
one.
We know a good place, right?
We know a good place.
Great.
That's right.
Well, thanks for joining us, guys. We'll talk to you
pleasure.
again next week. Thanks for listening to The Uncommon Truth.
God bless you guys.